Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, and you, my friend, are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and today we're discussing designer's block, HMIs, and the McCandless System, all on Light Talk.
And this is David, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Give me that low-down subwoofer, brother.
That's about as low as I can go, man.
Yeah, but I'm really into subwoofers this week.
Yeah, you're getting pretty much a free subwoofer today.
I am from my Lumen brother. It's coming. I'm being gifted a sub.
Yes,
it's awesome. Well,
that's because
awesome.
I got an even bigger sub. My sub
well,
is bigger than
I
yours.
can't compete with his subs.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 166. And to start off the show, we have headline news. Breaking news. GE is no longer making incandescent lamps.
I'm sad.
That's right. After 129 years, they've said, the hell with this. We're moving to just the LEDs. What do you guys think about that?
There'll be more tungsten in the world. We won't have to mine as much of it.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
We could have more toaster ovens. No, we use microwaves.
Well, my toaster
You know,
ovens.
certain things taste better. Like, let me just say, lately, I've been melting cheese on tortillas and English muffins, and you really can't do that in a microwave. You need a toaster oven for that. So there will still be a market for tungsten.
Are we still talking about GE?
No, tungsten and English
Okay.
muffins.
Okay, and English muffins. All right, what other news happened this week? Well, Christo has passed away.
That's sad, too.
Yeah, Christo was a great artist. I think he was more of an installation artist than anything else. What do you think, Stan? How would you classify him?
I think he was a one-of-a-kind, a unique, creative individual with a vision that was so compelling that people poured money for him to do these, like the thing in Central Park, and just so many wonderful things. And I think he's will go down in history.
Well, I remember when he wrapped the islands in Biscayne Bay, and we're all saying, "What the hell is that?" Yeah. It was kind of cool, though. It's a big project.
Did you enjoy it? I bet you did.
I don't know. Yeah.
Do you have any remembrance of how long it took to get
To
it
wrap
in
the
there
islands?
and get it out?
I think it took about a week. It didn't take that much time. I think they had a lot of that prepped already. So it was kind of cool when it happened because it was really just fabric.
That's a hell of a lot of fabric.
Well, how does one exactly prep that?
I don't know, but they did, and it was up there before you knew it, and then it was gone. However, it was quite beautiful. Yeah. And also this week, the manned SpaceX launch.
That was a glimmer of brightness in a dark week.
Oh, my God. Great. Thank God for SpaceX. That's all I have to say.
You know, now that they're in orbit, we should all get ape costumes. So when they come back, we're all dressed as apes.
Can I throw the bone up in the air and it doesn't turn into the spaceship when it's up in the air?
Oh, that's a funny idea.
That's good. Yeah, that'll freak them out.
Good, Steve.
Oh, you're talking about Planet of the Apes. I'm talking about 2001.
Yeah. No,
we
you
can do
the
that too.
But I think what Steve is saying is when they come back, they'll think they're on the wrong planet. But and we'll all be, we'll be.
But that was Planet of the Apes, wasn't that? Isn't that when they went out on space and then they came back and they went into some weird time warp? I don't remember.
That is Planet of the Apes. They say the same thing is true of the Jetsons and the Flintstones.
I like the Jetsons and the Flintstones.
Well, the Jetsons apparently happens chronologically first.
Oh, really? What happened?
And then we I don't know, there's a descent, and we get to the Flintstones. The Flintstones are after the Jetsons.
You know something? Someone's got to make that series. Someone needs to make a television series telling us what happened to society.
Or at least a dissertation project.
There you go. And finally, news from the Faroe Islands. Well, actually, It's news from Light Talk Central. We've checked, and they're still listening to us. So
and there's nine.
There are nine.
Listeners?
Yes, there are 9 listeners, which is amazing because I know there aren't 9 tour guides. Maybe the tour guides listen to us. I don't know.
You know that they save our episodes for their Shabbat dinners. That's what happens.
Did you know that Faroese is an actual language?
Really?
Yes, they have their own language called Faroese.
You know what? I know another interesting thing about it. So there are these birds, and I can't remember their name, and they lay their eggs on these steep cliffs in the Faroe Islands, and those eggs are a delicacy. And the islanders go out and they rappel down these cliffs to steal these eggs because they love the taste. And the birds are so angry. And these particular birds have an ability, and they vomit on the people who are trying to steal the eggs.
I just go to Tom Thumb.
just get some eggs. What can I tell you? 'Cause I want some Faroe Seabird
Apparently,
eggs.
those eggs are pretty special.
I have an idea, and I ran it by my brothers, and they kind of like it. I think in order to get to know who really listens to us at the Faroe Islands, if you're listening now, one of our listeners from the Faroe Islands, please contact us. You can contact us through Facebook. You can actually contact us on our emails at
David, Stan, or Steve at lighttalk.org. Yeah.
If you can contact us, we would love to have you on the show. We would love to have an interview with you to find out what type of live entertainment is in the Faroe Islands.
It's watching birds throw up on people.
At least that.
Right, slipping on bird vomit.
This is the same information we're sending out to McMurdo, but you guys in Antarctica, just get back to us, and we'll talk to you about penguins and things.
Right. Oh, and wait, Steve has some news.
Yeah, I saw. Everybody's kind of wondering what's happening with LDI and Las Vegas, and I started looking at the Las Vegas Convention Center, and man, they are booked solid. It seems like they're having events in there right now, and it shows LDI happening. I went to the LDI live design site, and much to my amazement, they want us back.
They want us back? Oh my God. We're doing something wrong.
We're like the toy in the Cracker Jack box. You can come to Light Talk right after you go to Brackley Freyr's portfolio review and mix it up with us.
Yeah, you can mix it up with us. We're still trying to figure out what to do about swag. I mean, it's going to be hard to follow last year's.
I think the Light Talk logo on masks.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. We do.
I went to my office.
Good.
I went to my office today, and in my mailbox was masks with the SMU logo on it. I get one a day.
Go ponies.
I think we're going to have gator masks shortly too, probably.
Oh, God. Okay, here we go. Hey, Steve has our first listener question.
Yes, it comes from Rhonda in Tennessee. And Rhonda writes, I am designing Romeo and Juliet this fall, but I have designer's block. I can't get past Act 1, Scene 1. How would you start? Well, okay, here's the deal. If you really do have designer's block, if you're just locked into a death struggle with getting this thing going, this is what I would recommend. You need to find the world of the play. And the way you find that world is you get yourself a piece of paper and you make 3 columns. And you start with what you see, what you hear, what you smell. So read Act 1, Scene 1, and just fill in what you see, what you hear, what you smell. So maybe you see sunrise, maybe you see windows opening, you see laundry hanging out, you see smoke rising from chimneys. Maybe you hear horses, you hear footsteps on cobblestone, you hear the voices of angry men, you hear maybe a priest. What do you smell? Perhaps you smell the river, you smell bread baking, you smell bedpans being emptied, you smell sweat, you smell blood. But start building a world. Just build the world and do that for every scene. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? And once you start doing that, you're giving yourself some background information that may help you choose a color, choose an angle, choose an intensity, because you're supporting these elements, and then the play is taking place inside that. So, if I really get stuck, that's a way to start.
I have one thing to contribute that's fairly practical. So there are a lot of people who are writers who often experience writer's block. That's a really, really strong thing. And I came across this book from a friend of mine who was an artist, and I think Steve's got it up on the website. So I'm going to recommend a book, but the book is really practical. It's called The Artist's Way. It's called a Spiritual Guide to Higher Creativity But what's cool about that book, and it's very, very inexpensive. You can get it for 99 cents on Amazon. It's sold millions and millions of copies. Is it has a very specific set of things that you can do to get through a block. This is notwithstanding to the recommendation that Steve made, which is digging into the play. But then you also have to sort of, one thing that she recommends that I'll just share is to take an artist's date with yourself. And that could mean going out somewhere with your camera or your drawing pad or your paints or whatever. You sort of like need to immerse yourself in that work, and then you sort of need to get away from it and let the mind sort of open up to other aspects of creativity. And she has a very, very specific, psychologically sound way to get through artistic blocks, right? And so I highly recommend that book, and that's what I recommend to my students when they're struggling, when the creative juices are not flowing. And writers oftentimes are under contract and they've got to produce. And so that's what she started writing it for. She wrote the book for writers, but I think it expands to designers or anyone who works in the creative fields.
Right. Well, we're under contracts and we have deadlines as well, you know. Cindy in Georgia writes, David, how often do you use HMI in a play or opera? And how do you control the output? Well, I use it all the time. I use HMIs. I mean, HMIs are, obviously used a lot in Europe, and I do a lot of shows there. They're very powerful, but they're also in a lot of moving lights that are non-LED. I mean, most of the moving lights I use have to have really high output to them because the throws are very long and the theaters are huge, so that you really need a lot more intensity. Therefore, HMIs are used quite a bit. And I love HMIs, I always have. Now, we're reaching a point with LED where LED is getting, pretty damn strong and matching that. But not everybody has the strong LEDs yet. So when I walk into a theater in Europe, they have a bunch of HMI Fresnels, they have a bunch of HMI Lekos. I use them. I love them. Absolutely use them. And how do you control the output, you ask? Well, I assume you're asking how do you dim them, and you dim them with a dowser. There's a dowser or shutter that will actually block the light and dim the light down. The lamp is always on, but basically the dowser blocks it totally.
I've also seen on Fresnels people use a DMX controllable louver.
Yeah, the shutter in the front.
So you have louvers on the front, and you can just open and close them the way you would shutters in your window.
They actually make these as accessories for HMI Fresnels because you can't put it inside the light. And it's the same thing for HMI Lekos too.
I just say I'm a big fan of HMI because of the broad spectrum of the light source. It's basically a daylight source, so it's great for color. And now that we have tunable white LEDs, like David says, we sort of got that, and they're getting pretty darn bright. But I love HMIs, and I love the quality of the light, the single shadow, the strength of the light. And also, here's the coolest dowser I've ever seen. I know the louvers that Steve's talking about are great, but I've also, back in the day, we used Pani projectors, which were massively bright HMI lamps. And we had Ludwig Pani made these pieces of glass that were grayscale. And it was two pieces of glass on a track, and they had a leading edge that was open and a trailing edge that was darker, and they would just come across each other and dim that thing so smooth. I mean, each piece of glass was hundreds of dollars. I've still got some in my office. I don't think they'll ever be needed again, but just incredibly beautifully smooth dimming by just rolling those gradiated glass across the train, the light train. But anyway, love them.
You're absolutely right about those Panis. One other thing I want to say, and it sort of trails off of Stan's thought about the quality of light and the wide range of frequencies.
Daylight spectrum.
I still haven't gotten to the point yet where I use high-powered LED from the front. I don't think they're there yet. I would much rather have an HMI fixture from the front than an LED fixture.
Yeah.
You just don't get the same type of activation of colors. I have not seen it.
In that HMI, the color temperature might be 6,000 K,
right?
But you've got red spectrum in there. You've got red spectrum as
right.
high as the blue, and so you're right, from a flesh tone activation, it's daylight.
Right.
It's the closest thing we have to true daylight. But I think LED, now we're hearing some rumbles, right, about some products that are going to boost the red. And that's on the right track.
Well, we will see. I still love Vipers for BMFLs from the front. There's nothing like that color.
I'm looking at your favorite website, which is ARI, and their discussion of HMI versus LED. And they say for all the problems of HMI, which is a warm-up time, a little fragile when they're cool to move, you got to be careful, things like that, doesn't really impact us in the theater. They say for all of the problems, nothing can beat an HMI for output. If you want a light that has output to it and punch, LED's nowhere close yet.
Victor in the UK writes, why did you Americans jump on the McCandless system with such vigor?
Well, someone had to figure it out.
Well, I could only speculate, on answering this question. The three of us, I'm sure, will have maybe a varied number of stories. But I have a copy of Stanley McCandless. It was called The Syllabus for Stage Lighting. And the title on it, I'd like to make this distinction, says a method for lighting the stage, not the method for lighting the stage. And I think what happened is maybe at the time there were no standards, and Americans maybe like standards, like Standard Oil saved a lot of lives, from oil fires. And so people gravitated to a standard. Stanley McCandless, we have the same first name, so I should like him, right? Never met him. But he was an architect, right? And some people have argued that in the space he was working in, these particular angles that he had, the 45-45 thing, the warm and cool, the pink and blue, whatever, it worked for him, and he wrote it up, and Americans just, we have a way to do it now, and I don't have to think too hard. I'll just do what this system says, and people, it's like a religion. People adopted it, and it's akin to, so in my museum experience, I learned that somebody somewhere wrote up that nothing should be brighter than 5-foot candles or 50 lux on a sensitive object. And they were writing this in general, right? It wasn't supposed to be like dogma, and it got adopted. And now wherever you go, every curator will say, no, nothing can be over 50 lux or 5-foot candles. And it became the thing, and people just find comfort in it. So I think that's what happened. I think that is certainly now a little bit debunked. It was a way to work. It's not the way to work. And why Americans did it? Well, we could have a long conversation about why Americans do certain things.
We're morons. That's basically the answer.
Well, I'm not an American basher, but I'll just say, because there's a lot of good too, but sometimes people, it's just general psychology, is comfort in a way of work. It's a formula. I can follow it, and I don't have to think too hard and make judgments on my own.
That makes us lazy morons. So basically,
David is moving to Europe.
Non-curious morons.
I have to jump in here. I think Stan is bashing Stanley McCandless.
I know he is.
No, I'm not.
Go ahead. Let's find out.
The thing about Stanley McCandless, and this is as it was explained to me, Stanley McCandless was not doing the McCandless System on Broadway. At the time, there was still this 5, and there still is today, this kind of 5 or 6 source points to every area on stage. We kind of loosely call that the jewel system.
Right.
We surround the actor with light. Stanley McCandless had his coffee one morning, and he said to himself, I wonder how few lights I can use and still give plasticity to the stage.
Yeah.
I can still make it full and rich. So this whole Stanley McCandless system was developed as an experiment down to building the theater space that he did it in. So he runs with this experiment. He gets it down to this up and out at 45, warm on one side, cool on the other side. Think of it a little bit as a dissertation. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't his dissertation. I mean, he was already a practicing professional, but he just wanted to do an experiment. So he did this. He published it. And the problem were universities. It wasn't the commercial world that was adopting this system. This is university professors who were, not necessarily super well trained at the time.
Oh, boy.
Lighting was in its infancy, and they're trying to find out some methodology that they can teach.
Yeah.
And they're also trying to figure it out if they don't have at the time, 200 or 300 lights to put on a show. They have 50, or they have 25 at their little theater in Dallas, Texas, or St. Louis, or wherever. So what happened was people ran with this idea, and they said, look, we can do a good-looking show with 25 lights. We just have to follow this basic formula, and he's telling us where to put the light to get the maximum effect from the light onto the stage and onto the performer. So I don't think he ever meant for it to have the life that he had. He was just writing up his observations of what to do with a severely limited equipment.
I think that's absolutely true.
Look at how light plots are drawn. I mean, for years, we had these goofy-looking light plots that had circles and squares and diamonds and triangles, and by the time you put all the information on the light plot, it was unlegible. But for the most part, that's what was taught at university, not what was being done in the commercial world. So we're trying to take something and document it and say, okay, this is what you do. If you look at a Billington light plot or a Don Holder line plot or a Natasha light plot, they're similar, but they're all very different in how they approach putting the graphics on the piece of paper. That's not something universities like. Universities want things to be standardized. And if you standardize it, then it can be peer judged and peer reviewed and then published.
Be careful what you say, because people may listen to you and actually try to do it.
Right, that's the point.
And I remember my teacher, I love him to death. He's still alive, and he still listens to the show, by the way. He started with this. It was McCandless as a stepping stone. I don't think it's necessarily true. I think that it's more about angle and more about the quality of the color in contrast to whatever other colors are on stage. That really doesn't have so much to do with warm and cool as it does to do with red and green.
The problem with the McCandless system is it worked for him because he had a controlled space. But if you're working in every other theater on the planet, at some point you run out of room. Mm-hmm. You can't have that 45 and 45 going in both directions. At some point you hit a wall, and now it doesn't quite work.
That's right.
So now you come back and you add a third light in. So instead of just a warm and cool at 45, you plug in another light between them it's kind of the pie in the clown's face, trying to get more light on them. So what's happened is people have bastardized what McCandless was advocating to make it work for their space, and it starts to fall apart really fast. And he gets a bad rap for that.
Yep, I think that's true. Well, you are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers, and Light Talk is sponsored by...
All the way from across the pond, here comes the cheeky rigor of Sheffield. As a lighting designer, you are asked to sit in a cold theater for hours upon end. The focus call, the endless tech, and the infamous 10 out of 12. Sometimes it feels like you are trapped in an artistic Guantanamo. You know what I mean. No time for a real cup of coffee. No time for a decent lunch, and certainly no time to answer nature's call. And let's face it, when nature calls, you may not be on equity break. And as we get older, we need every break we can get. Trying to write a light cue and control your bladder is bad for the design process. But what to do, kittens? The cheeky rigor of Sheffield, working with our partners, Cheeky Rigor Asia, presents No Leko, No Worry. Why waste your dark time looking for the toilet when you can wear No Leko, No Worry? It's comfy, cozy, and can be worn all day long. And best of all, No Leko, No Worry can hold 34 ounces of fluid. Perfect for all those Oktoberfest Wagner opera marathons. But wait, I know what you're thinking, and yes, you can use No Leko, No Worry at those long, boring faculty meetings where all your colleagues want to discuss is the acting program. Just pretend you're an astronaut in a spaceship heading to Mars. Or if you're like me, you are Captain Jean-Luc Picard busy fighting the Borg, and when you gotta go, you just shout out, "Make it so, number one." No Leko, no worry. Ask about our free samples and choose from plaid boxer, white brief, or black bikini mesh. Woo! The cheeky rigor Sheffield. we make leisure underwear too.
Well, wait, I have a question here. How can you have this device and integrate it into bikini mesh underwear?
I don't know. How's that work, Stan?
I've never been there.
Oh, okay.
But he's getting there soon. No Leko, no worry.
I just read the copy.
That
What can
he
I
just
say?
reads it. He's not.
He
He's
just
not
reads
design-
it. That's right. Well, now back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those rabid ducks in the background tells us that once again it's time for Let's Quack About.
What?
Quack, quack, quack. One of our listeners wrote into us and said, hey, should it be Let's Quack About? Nah, it's Let's Talk About. There you go. And today's Let's Talk About subject actually comes from another student. It's so great. I love doing these student interviews because you learn so much from them and what their concerns are and all that. And they ask you questions. And one of the questions I got from a student was, how can you, or if you can, direct your future artistic path? What do you guys think?
Yes.
Okay. And Steve has our final listener question.
Well, of course you can direct your artistic path. Of course you can direct your career. You know, how did, I don't know, I'll pick on our tuba playing friend, Don Holder. How did he get to work on Broadway? Because he worked really hard every other place. And when an opportunity came, I think it was at Julie Taymor, he was there. He had the skill set. He had the knowledge. You work for it. How do you direct your career to do opera? You call every opera company in a 100-mile radius of your home. And if that doesn't work, you call every opera company in a 200-mile radius of your home. And you go for it. I mean, when I started working overseas, I was touring with a dance company. But every theater I went to, I tried not to be the typical American asshole. I tried to be a nice guy, do a good job, learn the crew's names, talk to the stage manager, talk to the production manager at that theater. I left them a business card. I said, I want to come back and design here. So, for me, when I'm in a new place, if I came out and did something in David's neck of the woods, I would be sure that I met the theater people at Long Beach. I would go by and see whatever shows I could see. I would be pressing the flesh, as they say. I would be social. I'd be talking to them. I think you direct your career by hard work, but also by just being present and letting people know you're interested in what they're doing. Make it so, number one.
Make it so, number one.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of a contrary response to that. Not to say that what Steve is saying is incorrect. I think it is true. And to encapsulate what I think Steve is saying is you can't be lazy, right? So you have to be proactive, and I think that that's right. But I'll tell you this, to also amplify what Steve is saying, I've never seen in my coming up on 63 years on Earth a lucky, lazy person. So if you can show me somebody who's lazy and lucky, I've not seen that. But I do think that we discount the impact of luck on our lives. Luck and timing play a part. So you can do all of those things, and you can still have bad luck. And you could do only some of those things and have extraordinary luck. And I think that there is randomness in the universe. That doesn't mean you sit around and say, well, it doesn't matter what I do or don't do. You've got to be proactive. And I think that's Steve's point, and I would agree. But I also think luck plays a role. And how do you maybe up your chances of capturing or capitalizing on luck? Be ready. That comes through the hard work. So I think it's both.
Well, I was chatting with one of our Light Talk listeners who's well known, and I said, so what's happening? And this person, gave me a list of all the shows they have lost. And I said, well, that sounds pretty bad. And the response was, it is, but I'm now calling everybody I know. Mm-hmm. This person is a successful designer. This isn't some schlump. This person, is one of those guys or girls who really sets the pace. And they said, I'm calling everybody. I'm lining work up now for 2022. I hope I can line up work for 2021, but they're not setting back. And this is the type of person that you would be calling to design your show. And they are making their own luck right now by not waiting for the phone call.
I agree with both you guys, but I'm going to add something here. But maybe this is moving sort of where Stan was talking about. You have to be prepared and work hard on everything you do. And just because you want to do Broadway doesn't mean you turn down some little regional theater show like Lort D show or even smaller, right? Like some garage theater show. And let's say you want to do musicals, but it's a play. Well, you got to do everything because you never know who you're going to meet. And that person, that director who you meet in doing that little garage theater show may be the hottest opera director in the world. And let's say you never thought about doing opera, but all of a sudden this director wants to take you to do a show at La Scala. Well, are you going to turn that down because it's not Broadway? I think not. I think you're going to take advantage of every single opportunity that comes your way. I agree with Steve. You go ahead and you be proactive. You meet all the people involved in commercial theater and you want to do Broadway. Maybe you move to New York. You make all your connections. But if kismet happens, right, or a serendipitous type of experience occurs where all of a sudden you're working for a dance company, you're going to be doing dance lighting. So we're fortunate to be in a great artistic form that allows you to do all these different types of genres of live entertainment. So why not? Absolutely. I think you both are right. You both have really good points.
I have a button to button this. My dear wife has a saying about this that kind of puts those two ideas next to each other. So it's like a bicycle. So you pedal as hard as you possibly can, but the steering is done by the universe.
Interesting. I like that.
I really like that. You just keep pedaling and let the universe steer and be ready.
Follow it. Follow your bliss, baby. Follow your bliss. So Steve has our final question.
William in Virginia writes, last week you said both the Neo and the Hedgehog were good consoles. Why?
They pay him to say that.
They are good. They are good consoles.
Really?
They are good consoles. Sure, they are.
What do you want a console to do in a certain price point? And we were talking about consoles of a certain price point. What do you want your console to do that the Hedgehog can't do? It comes standard with 6 universes. You can add on that, I think it's called the 8000 processor, and kick on another 16 universes. It's got internal touchscreen monitor. You can faders, encoders. What do you want it to do that it doesn't do? The same thing with the Neo. The Neo, you can have 100 universes on that thing. How many do you need? It has 10 motorized submasters. It has motorized A/B faders. Has pixel mapping, media playback, time code. You have to ask yourself, what are your needs? They may not be the right console for you. I also threw in ETC's Ion there, so I suspect you feel Ion is a superior console. There's nothing wrong with the Ion. I'm simply saying there are 3 good choices, and there are probably more that I don't know of. So I think when you start looking at a console in whatever price point, but you should compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So, don't take a Hedgehog and compare it to a Grand MA. Don't take a small console and compare it to a $40,000 console. What do you want it to do? What are the needs of your theater? What are the needs of your church or your club or your university? And then, with an open mind, call up all these manufacturers and get these consoles into your space and go through them and see. You might be surprised at what a console can do. I think, particularly that Hedgehog, this is speculation. I think if high-end had not been bought by ETC, I think the Hedgehog would have given the Ion a run for its money. I think those guys in Austin, I think their big plan was to put a Hedgehog in every middle school and high school in the country. And as more and more schools are adding moving lights, and, just go on YouTube and look at the really incredible program that high school students are doing right now. I think they might have put a dent in sales with the Hedgehog. Again, same thing with Neo. Neo is the best kept secret on the planet. It does amazing things, as does the Ion. So again, get the consoles, kick the tires, see what you like, see what you don't like, talk to the manufacturers, and then make a choice.
Yeah. Throw them in a pool of water, see if they still work when they come out. That's what I say. If it works, it's a good board.
Does it have to be on?
Yes.
If I can tell, I'm more. I'll tell you a story about Strand. I had a mini light palette, and it was on a little table at the edge of the stage. And the TD was this guy from the Bronx, and he was a pussycat, but he always wanted to be like a bad boy. And he comes walking up to me with a Coca-Cola in his hand. And I go, "You don't want that Coca-Cola anywhere near this console." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. And he put the Coke in his shirt pocket. And then he leaned over to talk to me. And I thought, what is this? Where is this coming from?
He's an American, right? He's a moron.
Yes, he was an American. It was like a waterfall of brown liquid going onto the console. So he just doused my console with 12 ounces of Coca-Cola.
Was it classic Coke?
It was classic Coke with all, and that's important. Actually, that's an important part of the story.
Absolutely.
It was fully loaded Coca-Cola. I called up, I think it was Joel Epstein, and I said, "What to do?" And he said, "You're in Louisiana. Go outside and find yourself some ants." So I took the console outside. I put it next to an anthill, and those little ants just had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
They marched into the console, got all the Coca-Cola and the sugar out, and marched back to their anthill. The next day, I plugged that thing, and it worked.
And you smelled burnt ants inside of it, right?
Well, I called him to tell him, what a genius he was, and he said, "I was just kidding, man."
It's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah, but it was a great idea.
It's a great idea. Hey, the rocking sounds of the luminoids in the background tell us that once again you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you choose to litigate us, the law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flair, and Claire and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss the deep mysteries of lighting design and technology on Light Talk.
All of that and a new sponsor.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
We will see you all next Saturday morning. Stay healthy and stay happy. And bye-bye from Light Talk.
Take care, everybody. Stay cool.
Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk. Light Talk. Light Talk. Lumen Brothers.